What are Heavy's best and worst weapons in MvM? That's right, gentlemen, today we're back again with another MvM tier list. This one being made for the Russian man himself, the Heavy. Same rules as always. This is a 2 cities tier list. It's being made under the context of a solo queuing player, and each weapon is ranked within the respective weapon slots. So melee weapons will be in the same tier as miniguns. No, this does not make them equally as good as each other. And of course, this is just my opinion based off my own experiences. If you have a different opinion, leave it in the comments below. Let's go. The bottle broke the trend of stock melees being D tier, and now the fists bring us back down to reality. And you know the reasons why at this point. There's no reason to ever use them for damage, and they provide zero utility to Heavy as a class. At least this one has a taunt kill. To my knowledge, the Holiday Punch is the only weapon in the game that has had its main draw completely stripped away in MvM. You can't make robots laugh anymore, so now it's literally just a fist reskin without being able to damage from behind. Maybe it did deserve to get nerfed a little bit, but at this point, it's completely unusable. The shotguns. They were D tier for Soldier, D tier for Pyro, and surprise surprise, they are D tier for Heavy. Fat Scout may be a funny meme in MvM, but in terms of actual damage, it pales in comparison to any minigun in the game. So there is no reason to ever pull out a shotgun. The Natasha is good for slowing down Super Scouts, and that's about it. I'm not saying that's a bad use case, but you suffer a 25% damage penalty just for that one benefit. In no world is this trade worth it, especially when there are like 7 other ways of stopping a Super Scout. It stops other robots too, but generally that's also a bad thing, because you're making it more difficult to achieve your maximum DPS as Heavy through damage ramp up by keeping them at a distance for an extended period of time. Never use this minigun. It sucks, and I don't know why people pretend it's good. You could maybe debate C tier with this one, but I just think the Tomislav is also just a massive downgrade from the other miniguns. The faster rev is fine, even if the silence doesn't mean shit, but this weapon's main draw is normally its accuracy, but this doesn't really matter in MvM. If you're shooting from afar, it's usually against hordes of small robots, in which case, so what if the spread is bigger? There is a very strong chance that that missed bullet will just hit the robot on the side of your target anyways. And as for giants, your goal is to get as close as possible to achieve your maximum damage through ramp up, and this is a range where the Tomislav is unquestionably worse off, even in casual. So the benefits are barely noticeable, but that 20% slower firing speed sure as hell is, and that makes this weapon completely not worth using. I'm a bit torn on the Warrior Spirit, because statistically, with 800 credits of spending combined with the Buffalo Steak Sandwich, the Warrior Spirit will slightly outdamage a fully maxed out minigun when doing damage to the tank. But a minigun with mini crits will outdamage the melee, and typically you'll have a soldier popping buff banner whenever this happens. But if your soldier is running conch, which is very plausible, this is actually Heavy's best means of doing damage to the tank. But it's also only really useful late game when 800 credits doesn't mean as much, similarly to the Sandman, but I think that's a good enough use case to keep it outside of D tier. Each lunchbox item has a primary effect and a secondary effect, and the Delocus bar gets the short end of both sticks. Its primary effect of 50 extra overheal when used is fine, but the fact it doesn't stack with a medic's overheal with the exception of the quick fix makes it hard to ever get use out of whenever you're not on a team with a medic. You can also throw it down as a small medkit on the floor for your team to use, but other lunchbox items get a medium health pack, so it's outclassed there as well. The eviction notice is good because you move 15% faster while it's active, and that's literally the only good thing about this weapon. The movement speed on hit might sound good on paper, but typically when you want to get speed off a robot, you still actually want to, kill them. And the eviction notice does fuck all damage-wise, so it can never be useful in that respect. Still though, it's fine, but for movement speed options, there's a better choice coming up. The Fists of Steel are a pretty useful weapon, but they're not all that versatile. taking 40% less damage while in the line of fire does have its moments, and when you do get hit, you will notice the difference. But generally speaking, as heavy, you want to avoid situations where you could be bursted down if your medic isn't nearby, but if you do find yourself in one, the Fist of Steel will help you survive it. As an on-the-fly escape tool, it has a lot to be desired thanks to its slower pullout time, but it has a purpose, so it's pretty alright. If the Killer Gloves of Boxing had like 2 more extra seconds of crits, I would probably put it in A tier, but there are too many moments where your crits will just run out the moment a giant robot drops down. Occasionally, the crits will pan out and you will get that 300% increased DPS, it just doesn't happen enough for me to put it any higher. It also has an amazing niche on Empire Wave 6 with the 20 Uber Medic pairs that spawn, as you can chain kill with your crits in the same way that a Demo Knight would. So it has its moments and it has a niche. I think B tier is fine. The second banana has the same small health pack drop effect as the chocolate, which does make it worse as a support tool, but being able to restore 200 HP is the second best primary benefit of all the lunchbox items. And theoretically, it can be used more often thanks to the faster charge time. This just doesn't happen all that much. It's not a bad item, just not the best. So as I mentioned, the Buffalo Steak Sandwich has its niche against tanks, combined with the Warrior Spirit. But this item has something that the Warrior Spirit doesn't: utility on every single wave. The Buffalo Steak Sandwich acts as a medium medkit, unlike the banana or the chocolate. So as a pure support tool, it's better than both of those. This weapon has gotten a reputation of being pretty bad in MvM, but I completely disagree. The medium medkit drop alone is enough to make this weapon viable. That was a nice couple minute break from miniguns, so let's talk about them again. The Huo Long Heater is a weird one, in that this weapon requires a good engineer to be useful. If your NG is trash, this gun will chew through ammo like a motherfucker. But even then, although the ammo draining can be offset by an NG, that 10% damage nerf will not. But it's balanced out by this weapon doing 20% more damage to burning targets. And this is where we see a weird dynamic. The Huo Long Heater will usually always be worse off against small robots because you're typically too far to set them on fire. But on giants, this thing does have enough time to set them on fire and get that increased DPS if your team is bad enough to not kill them in 2 seconds. So you might have noticed the same conundrum that I have. This weapon stacks positively with a good engineer, but negatively with a good demo, a good spy, or a good burst soldier. And with those teammates, you're mostly only getting the 10% damage nerf. And that's why it's in B tier. It's just not that reliable in the context of a solo queuing player. Jumping straight into S tier, we have the Guru. This is no surprise if you've seen the other tier lists, because the speed increasing weapons are usually always the best. It helps you reach the front lines quicker, helps you get in position faster, and helps you retreat more safely. As a heavy, you go from the slowest class in the game to average class speed just by bringing this weapon out. And I know the Guru has a health draining mechanic, and so does the eviction notice for that matter, but usually getting to where you need to be faster trumps doing so at full health. And that's mostly because a good medic will glue his medigun to your ass the moment you're in sight. The Guru has the most general application of all of Heavy's melees, and therefore I think it is the best. For the best secondary in the game and the single greatest lunchbox item, we have the Sandwich. This weapon has the best primary effect of healing you all the way back to full, and is tied for the best drop effect with the Buffalo Steak Sandwich of a medium medkit for your team. That's really it. It's the best of both worlds for both of its uses. And although it takes longer to recharge, its combination of support and self-sufficiency aren't beat by anything else. I know some people might think the stock minigun deserves A tier instead of S, but honestly, I think this might be Heavy's most underrated weapon. The stock minigun just does so much right. It has the second highest damage output of any minigun, and it's incredibly consistent in terms of how much damage it does. But its biggest strength is being extremely adaptable without the downside of any nerfs. It's the only minigun in the game without a damage penalty that allows you to position yourself wherever you need to be, due to the heavy speed when revved up being on par with a giant's walk speed. This makes it the best minigun for consistently getting damage ramp up, and although the base damage is lower than what's coming next, I still think it's good enough to be put in S tier. The reason why the Brass Beast is so good and my pick for the best minigun in the game is because of this thing's damage potential. 20% more damage in every situation is an insane increase for a class that was already the best single target damage dealer in the entire game. However, with all that power comes with the downside that needs to be worked with. You move 60% slower when revved up than you normally would with any other minigun. So not only does it make it more difficult to dodge projectiles from small robots you'll be fighting from range, but it also makes it take longer to get closer to giants and therefore not achieve your maximum damage ramp up as fast. That said, this can be offset with a good medic, preemptive positioning, buying Uber canteens, or more health on kill to make you more bulky. And yeah, those cost money, but you can't upgrade the base damage of your gun in MvM, so you'll buy whatever you can to make this very unique upside worth it. It's not as versatile as stock, and generally speaking, you'll need a decently competent team to not be blown up while using it, but for its sheer power, the Brass Beast is an easy S tier minigun. And that's it for the tier list. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more MvM related content. I got a shitload of videos coming out soon, and I hope you stick around to watch them. That's all I got. See ya guys.